You're not a firefighter. You're a fraud.
Call dispatch. I was sent here.
That's the only man who can save them. The chief's children are still inside.
Look at this. Officer Ethan Briggs sneered with a cruel laugh as he ripped the flashing emergency dashboard light from the black firefighter's pickup and hurled it onto the pavement, crushing it beneath his polished boot. A black guy with a fake emergency light thinks he can play hero. That's the funniest thing I've seen all week. He grabbed Malik Thompson by the front of his turnout jacket, slammed him against the truck, and violently twisted his arms behind his back. The handcuffs snapped shut with a sharp, metallic click. "I'm a firefighter," Malik shouted. "Dispatch sent me. People are trapped inside." Ethan leaned closer with a mocking grin. "Oh, I'm sure they are," he scoffed. "And let me guess, after you save them, they'll pin a medal on you too. Save the fairy tale for someone who's dumb enough to believe it." Several bystanders exchanged uneasy glances, but Ethan wasn't finished. He ripped the department radio from Malik's shoulder, held it up for everyone to see, and laughed loudly. "Anyone can buy a radio online. A uniform doesn't make you a firefighter, and a black man speeding through my city doesn't get to invent an emergency just because he says so." He threw the radio onto the asphalt. Its speaker crackled desperately. Rescue Captain Thompson responded immediately. "The fire chief's children are still trapped inside the structure." Repeat, "the chief's children are still inside." The color drained from Ethan's face. If this moment made your blood boil, don't look away, because what happens next will leave everyone at that scene speechless. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from and what your local time is. And if you enjoy powerful stories where courage defeats injustice, subscribe and stay with us until the very end. Welcome, everybody. There's a kind of quiet you only find far from anywhere familiar, and I've come to need it. Come find it with me. 4 hours earlier, Charlotte looked like any other quiet Saturday afternoon. Children rode bicycles through tree-lined neighborhoods. Couples lingered outside cafes. Lawn sprinklers clicked steadily across freshly cut grass. Nothing about the peaceful city suggested that before sunset, dozens of lives would depend on a single man reaching one address in time. At Station 18, however, Malik Thompson never truly considered himself off-duty. The 35-year-old black firefighter had officially started a 48-hour break that morning. Even so, he remained only minutes away from the station, as he always did. His turnout gear rested neatly behind the driver's seat of his pickup. His rescue helmet sat secured beside it, and every tool was inspected before he left home. Preparation had become second nature. Years earlier, his captain had taught him one lesson he never forgot. The fire never checks your schedule before it comes. Malik lived by those words. Neighbors often joked that he smiled more than anyone on the block, but few realized how much loss had shaped that smile. His father, also a firefighter, had died during a warehouse collapse when Malik was only 14. Instead of filling him with bitterness, the tragedy gave him a purpose. He refused to let another family experience the same heartbreak if he could prevent it. Over the next 2 decades, he became one of Charlotte Fire Department's most respected rescue specialists. While others mastered hoses or ladder operations, Malik dedicated himself to structural rescue, confined space extraction, and collapse survival. Whenever a building looked too dangerous to enter, people quietly hoped Malik would be the one answering the call. Despite earning countless commendations, he rarely spoke about them. To him, the greatest reward was watching frightened families embrace each other after the smoke cleared. That afternoon, Malik had just finished helping his elderly neighbor replace a broken fence post when his cell phone vibrated sharply. The screen displayed only 3 words: "Fire Chief Brooks." Malik answered immediately. "Captain." Daniel Brooks wasted no time. "See, Malik, we have a developing situation in Ashcroft Heights. Construction crews reported smoke inside the old Whitmore Estate. Initial crews think it's electrical, but dispatch is receiving conflicting calls. You're the closest structural rescue specialist we have. I'm on my way. I'll have official dispatch notify you en route. The call ended. No hesitation. No unnecessary questions. Malik apologized to his neighbor, jogged toward his truck, and pulled his turnout jacket over his shoulders before climbing inside. Within seconds, the emergency authorization beacon mounted inside his windshield flashed bright red. Unlike civilian imitation lights, this one had been legally issued by the department for rapid response personnel. The dashboard radio connected automatically, Rescue Captain Thompson acknowledged. Traffic ahead remained unusually heavy. Families were heading toward weekend events. Delivery trucks clogged intersections. Every minute mattered. Malik activated the emergency beacon and carefully moved through traffic, slowing whenever another vehicle hesitated before yielding. He never abused the privilege. His instructors had drilled that responsibility into every emergency responder. Drive fast enough to save lives. Never so fast that you create another emergency. Across town, Officer Ethan Briggs had just begun what he hoped would become another impressive shift. At 32, Ethan had built a reputation for aggressive traffic enforcement. Some supervisors praised his productivity. Others quietly questioned his judgment. He believed hesitation was weakness. Rules existed for everyone else. As he sipped lukewarm coffee inside his patrol cruiser, dispatch announced multiple reports of an unauthorized emergency vehicle traveling through the Western District. The description was incomplete. Dark pickup, flashing red light. Moving above normal traffic speed. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He had spent months hearing stories about civilians illegally installing emergency lights to bypass congestion. Every time another officer dismissed the violation with a warning, Ethan criticized them. People only break bigger laws when small ones go unchecked. His radio crackled again. Unit 12, possible emergency response vehicle approaching your location. The transmission overlapped with another dispatcher attempting to relay additional information. Static swallowed several crucial words before the message cut out completely. Ethan caught only fragments. Pick up. To emergency. Responding. He never waited for clarification. There you are, he muttered, after spotting Malik's truck weaving carefully between yielding vehicles. The flashing light reflected across nearby storefront windows. To Ethan, it confirmed everything he already believed. Another fraud. Another attention seeker pretending to be above the law. He pulled onto the roadway and accelerated. Several blocks ahead, Malik noticed the patrol car entering traffic behind him. He glanced briefly into the mirror. At first, he assumed the officer intended to escort traffic around the emergency response. It occasionally happened during large incidents. Instead, blue lights exploded across the patrol vehicle. The siren screamed. Malik frowned. That's strange. He reached for the radio microphone. Dispatch Rescue Captain Thompson. A patrol unit appears to be attempting a traffic stop. Can you notify them I'm responding under emergency authorization? Static answered. The signal faded beneath interference. He tried again. Nothing. At the same moment, Ethan pressed harder on the accelerator. His jaw tightened. I'm ending this stunt right now. Neither man realized that only a few miles away, thin gray smoke had already begun escaping through the attic vents of the Whitmore Estate. Inside the sprawling historic mansion, frightened voices echoed through smoke-filled hallways as flames silently climbed inside hidden walls. And somewhere within that growing inferno, two terrified children waited for a rescue that was already beginning to fall behind. The distance between life and death had become only a matter of minutes. Neither Malik nor Ethan understood just how expensive those minutes were about to become. The blue emergency lights in Ethan Briggs's rearview mirror grew brighter with every passing second. Malik let out a quiet breath. This can't be happening. He eased off the accelerator and steered toward the shoulder of the 4-lane boulevard. The emergency beacon inside his windshield continued flashing, while his department radio crackled with overlapping dispatch traffic. Engine 4 arriving. Ladder 7 establishing command. Heavy smoke showing. Possible victims? Every transmission tightened the knot in Malik's stomach. He rolled down the window before Ethan even reached the truck. Officer, I'm Rescue Captain Malik Thompson with Charlotte Fire Department. I'm responding to an active structure fire. Instead of looking at the identification already in Malik's hand, Ethan walked slowly around the pickup, studying it as though inspecting stolen property. He chuckled. So, this is the big emergency. Malik remained calm. My credentials are right here. I don't need your story, Ethan interrupted. I only need your driver's license. Malik handed over both his license and his department identification. Ethan barely glanced at either one. His attention remained fixed on the flashing emergency beacon. You really expect me to believe they hand these lights out to civilians? They don't, Malik answered evenly. They're issued to authorized rescue personnel. Ethan laughed. Convenient. Another urgent call burst from Malik's shoulder radio. Rescue Captain Thompson, update your ETA immediately. Malik instinctively reached for the microphone. Before his fingers touched it, Ethan slapped his hand away. You answer me first. Officer, every second counts. So does obeying the law. Several passing drivers slowed, sensing something unusual. A delivery driver stopped in a nearby parking lot. 2 teenagers began recording from the sidewalk. The growing audience only seemed to encourage Ethan. You know what's funny, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. People always become firefighters, doctors, or federal agents the moment they're caught doing something illegal. A few people exchanged uncomfortable glances. Malik kept his voice steady. Please verify my dispatch authorization. I already verified one thing. And what's that? You're not going anywhere. Ethan walked to the front of the truck and yanked the emergency authorization beacon from the dashboard. The wiring snapped. The flashing light died instantly. He held the broken device above his head. Looks like your little shortcut just expired. Then he tossed it onto the pavement. Plastic shattered across the asphalt. Malik stared for only a second. That beacon represented more than equipment. It represented precious time. Time someone else no longer had. Officer Briggs, Malik said after noticing the name on the badge. Call dispatch. They'll confirm everything. Ethan folded his arms. Funny how desperate you are for me to make that call. I'm asking because lives are at risk. No. You don't want me making that call because your whole story falls apart. Malik could hear panic rising in the emergency radio. 2nd floor. Children possibly trapped. Fire spreading through concealed spaces. His pulse quickened. I have to leave. He reached toward the truck door. Ethan immediately grabbed his wrist. I said you're staying. I'm under lawful emergency response. I'll decide what's lawful. The words landed like a punch. Malik slowly looked into Ethan's eyes. There was no uncertainty, no confusion, only absolute confidence. Confidence built on assumptions. A small crowd had gathered near the sidewalk. An elderly woman stepped forward. Officer, she called carefully. If he's really a firefighter, shouldn't someone check first? Ethan waved her off without even turning around. "Gee, ma'am, I know exactly what I'm doing." The woman looked at Malik. His turnout jacket bore the Charlotte Fire Department patch. His heavy rescue boots were covered with soot from previous calls. His identification still hung around his neck. None of it seemed to matter. Ethan suddenly grabbed the radio microphone attached to Malik's jacket. "Let's see what toy you're carrying." "It's department property," Malik warned. Ethan unclipped it anyway. The speaker crackled. "Command to rescue Captain Thompson. Report immediately. Repeat." The transmission continued. "Structural integrity deteriorating. Urgent." Malik extended his hand. "Please." Instead, Ethan smirked. "Nice recording." Then he let the radio fall onto the roadway. The impact sent the battery skidding beneath another vehicle. The speaker continued broadcasting distorted voices before finally going silent. The entire crowd froze. Even the teenagers recording lowered their phones for a moment. Malik closed his eyes briefly. That radio had connected him directly to the people now fighting for their lives. He no longer knew what was happening at the fire. He no longer knew how much time remained. He only knew every minute slipping away made the rescue less likely. Ethan reached for his handcuffs. "I've had enough." Metal flashed beneath the afternoon sun. "Officer, turn around." "I haven't committed a crime. You impersonated emergency personnel." "I am emergency personnel." "Turn around." Malik glanced toward the thick column of smoke now clearly visible above the rooftops. It had doubled in size. Dark black smoke rolled into the sky. Sirens echoed from every direction. Someone nearby whispered quietly, "The fire's getting worse." Another bystander spoke up. "Maybe you should just verify his badge." Ethan ignored them. His voice grew even louder. "This is exactly what's wrong with people today. Everyone thinks flashing lights excuse bad behavior." Malik slowly placed his hands where Ethan could see them. Not because he accepted the accusation, because resisting would waste even more time. As Ethan stepped behind him, Malik made one final attempt. "My name is Malik Thompson. I'm rescue captain for Station 18. If you stop me today..." He looked toward the growing cloud of smoke. Someone may never make it home. For the briefest moment, silence settled over the roadside. Then the steel cuffs slammed around Malik's wrists with a sharp metallic click. At that exact instant, miles away inside the burning Whitmore Estate, part of the second-floor ceiling collapsed into the hallway, cutting off the last safe escape route for the terrified children trapped inside. Neither Ethan nor the stunned crowd had any idea that the countdown to a tragedy had just accelerated beyond anyone's control. The handcuffs dug into Malik Thompson's wrists as another fire engine roared past the roadside traffic, its siren fading toward the growing column of black smoke hanging over Ashcroft Heights. He closed his eyes for one brief moment. Every instinct inside him screamed to run. Every second he remained standing there could mean another room filling with smoke, another staircase collapsing, another family losing hope. Officer Ethan Briggs stepped back with an air of complete satisfaction. "There," he said, clipping the handcuff chain to his duty belt. "Now nobody else gets hurt because of your little stunt." Malik stared at him in disbelief. "My stunt? You endangered everyone on this road. I was trying to save people. You were pretending to save people." The words landed harder than the steel around Malik's wrists. Nearby, the small crowd had nearly doubled. Several motorists had pulled into nearby parking lots. Some whispered among themselves. Others continued recording. One middle-aged man wearing a construction vest stepped forward. "Officer," he said cautiously, "I've seen firefighters use those emergency lights before." Ethan barely looked at him. You've also probably seen fake badges. The man frowned. I'm just saying maybe dispatch could... I didn't ask for your opinion. The crowd fell quiet again. Malik took a slow breath. Officer Briggs. What? Call fire communications. No. Verify my employee number. No. Scan my department ID. No. Every answer came faster than the last. Ethan wasn't investigating anymore. He was defending the decision he had already made. Across town, chaos consumed the Whitmore Estate. Orange flames now burst through sections of the roof. Dense smoke rolled from shattered second-floor windows. Charlotte Fire Department crews stretched hose lines across the sprawling front lawn, while paramedics established a casualty collection point near the entrance gates. Neighbors stood behind police tape in stunned silence. Some cried openly. Others desperately tried calling loved ones. Inside the command vehicle, Fire Chief Daniel Brooks stared at the incident map spread across the folding table. His face had lost all color. Where's Thompson? Operations Chief Lisa Hernandez shook her head. We've tried his radio 6 times. No response. Nothing. Daniel grabbed another handheld radio. Rescue Captain Thompson, this is Chief Brooks. Respond immediately. Static. Only static. He looked toward Battalion Chief Aaron Mills. Who else knows the Whitmore floor plan? Aaron hesitated. No one like Malik. What about Urban Search Team 2? They're 25 minutes away. Daniel slammed one hand against the command table. We don't have 25 minutes. A firefighter burst into the command post. Chief. What? The thermal drone picked up 3 heat signatures on the second floor. Daniel stepped toward the monitor. 3 glowing figures, 1 larger, 2 much smaller. His heartbeat stopped. He recognized the bedroom immediately. My God. Nobody spoke. Only the crackling roar of the fire filled the silence. His son, his daughter, and their elderly nanny, still inside. A firefighter quietly asked the question everyone feared. Chief, do you want us to send another interior team? Daniel stared at the collapsing roofline. They'll never make it through the east hallway. Someone whispered, if Malik were here. No one finished the sentence. Everyone understood. Back on the roadside, Malik heard another set of sirens rushing toward the neighborhood. His heart sank. Too many. Far too many. He looked at Ethan again. Please. The word came quietly. I've spent 12 years pulling people out of fires. I'm begging you. Make one phone call. For the first time, Ethan hesitated. Not because he believed Malik. Because the sincerity in his voice didn't match the image Ethan had already built in his mind. Before he could answer, another patrol cruiser pulled onto the shoulder. Officer Jenna Collins stepped out. She glanced at Malik, then at the broken emergency beacons scattered across the pavement. What happened here? Ethan answered before anyone else could speak. Fake emergency responder. Jenna looked at Malik's turnout jacket. Did you verify his credentials? I don't need to. You didn't check. I caught him abusing emergency equipment. Jenna's expression tightened. She walked closer to Malik. His department identification still hung around his neck. His jacket clearly displayed his embroidered rank. Rescue Captain, Station 18, Charlotte Fire Department. She looked back at Ethan. Did dispatch confirm he's unauthorized? They don't have to. Ethan, I've got this. Jenna lowered her voice. Let's run his information. No. It'll take 30 seconds. I said no. Before the conversation could continue, Ethan's shoulder radio suddenly exploded with frantic traffic. All available units? Ashcroft Heights. Crowd control. Fire chief requesting immediate roadway clearance. Jenna reached instinctively for her microphone. The dispatcher continued. Chief Brooks advises 2 children remain trapped inside. Ethan listened without reacting. Then the dispatcher added one final sentence. Rescue Captain Thompson still unaccounted for. Jenna slowly turned toward Malik. Her eyes widened. She looked back at Ethan. Ethan. He remained silent. For the first time since stopping the truck, uncertainty crept across his face. Not enough to admit he might be wrong, but enough to make him wonder. At that very moment inside the burning Whitmore Estate, another violent explosion echoed through the second floor. A section of the staircase collapsed into a wall of flames. The children screamed for help. Outside, every firefighter instinctively took one step toward the entrance, then stopped. There was no safe way in. Chief Brooks clenched both fists until his knuckles turned white. He whispered so quietly, only the officers beside him could hear. Hold on. His voice cracked. Please hold on just a little longer. Miles away, standing helplessly in handcuffs beside a busy roadway, Malik lifted his eyes toward the enormous cloud of smoke darkening the afternoon sky. He whispered the very same words, I'm coming. But for the first time in his entire career, he couldn't keep that promise. The flames swallowed another section of the Whitmore Estate as Fire Chief Daniel Brooks stepped away from the command vehicle and stared at the burning mansion with helpless frustration. The radio traffic around him became increasingly desperate. Ladder 7 to command, we've lost access to the east staircase. Engine 4 reporting partial roof collapse over the library. The thermal imaging still shows movement on the second floor. Daniel clenched his jaw. They're still alive. No one answered. Every firefighter standing nearby knew exactly what he was thinking. If the children were still moving, there was still hope. But hope was disappearing with every minute. Operations Chief Lisa Hernandez approached, carrying a tablet displaying the building's original architectural drawings. The fire has spread through the concealed wall cavities, she said quietly, and every route we've attempted has failed. Daniel studied the floor plan. He knew this house. He had walked through it several times after the city approved its restoration project. Wide hallways, heavy timber beams, hidden crawl spaces, a beautiful home that had become a deadly maze once fire reached the interior walls. Any update from Urban Search Team 2, he asked. Lisa shook her head. Still 20 minutes away. Daniel exhaled slowly. We don't have 20. Another firefighter hurried toward them. Chief. What now? The parents just arrived. Daniel closed his eyes. He wasn't ready for this conversation, but he had no choice. Near the police perimeter, Michael and Rebecca Whitmore rushed from their SUV before it had even come to a complete stop. Both were covered in dust from the construction site where they had been working when neighbors called. Rebecca grabbed Daniel's turnout coat. My babies. Daniel gently held her shoulders. We're doing everything we can. Where are they? Second floor. Her knees nearly gave out. Michael caught her before she collapsed. You'll get them out, Michael pleaded. Please tell me you'll get them out. Daniel looked toward the burning windows, for the first time in 27 years as a firefighter. He couldn't answer with confidence. Instead, he quietly said, We're trying. The silence that followed hurt more than any scream. Across the fireground, crews continued attacking the blaze from every possible angle. Water hammered against shattered windows. Aerial ladders sprayed thousands of gallons across the roof. Still, the fire continued advancing. Inside the command tent, Lisa pointed toward another section of the blueprint. If someone could reach the maintenance corridor. Daniel nodded immediately. I know. It bypasses the main staircase. I know. It leads directly beneath the children's bedrooms. Daniel rubbed both hands across his face. Only one person on this department has ever used that corridor during live fire training. Lisa looked at him. Malik. Daniel nodded. He designed half the rescue procedures we use for these historic homes. A heavy silence settled over the command post. No one wanted to say the obvious. The rescue plan they needed depended entirely on one firefighter, and no one knew where he was. Meanwhile, several miles away, Malik remained standing beside Ethan's patrol cruiser with his wrists locked behind his back. His turnout jacket was streaked with dirt from being shoved against the truck. The broken emergency beacon still lay scattered across the pavement. Officer Jenna Collins walked several steps away and quietly contacted dispatch using her portable radio. 84 requesting confirmation on Rescue Captain Malik Thompson. The dispatcher answered almost immediately. Stand by. Jenna waited. Her expression gradually changed. What? She listened for several more seconds, then slowly lowered the radio. She looked directly at Ethan. Ethan. He folded his arms. What? Dispatch confirms he's active. He frowned. So, they confirm he's responding under emergency authorization? No. Yes. They must have made a mistake. They verified his employee number. They're wrong. Jenna stared at him in disbelief. They also confirmed Chief Brooks personally requested him. For several seconds, Ethan said nothing. Instead of accepting the information, he searched desperately for another explanation. Maybe dispatch misunderstood. Ethan. He could have stolen somebody's ID. Jenna's patience disappeared. You've got to be kidding. The nearby crowd had heard enough. The construction worker who had spoken earlier shook his head. So he really is a firefighter. An elderly woman looked toward Malik with sympathy. He kept telling the truth. The teenagers recording never lowered their phones. One quietly whispered, "This whole thing's on video." Ethan suddenly noticed the cameras pointed at him. His confidence began cracking, not because he regretted his actions, because he realized other people were watching. Malik finally spoke. I told you exactly who I was. No anger, no shouting, only exhaustion. I asked you to verify. Ethan looked away. Before anyone could speak again, every radio on the scene erupted simultaneously. Emergency traffic! Emergency traffic! All conversation stopped. Dispatcher's voice, interior crews forced to withdraw. Repeat, all interior crews ordered out. Structure entering collapse phase. Even Malik felt his stomach drop. He knew exactly what those words meant. Firefighters never abandoned trapped victims unless entering the building had become almost impossible. Jenna looked toward him. What does collapse phase mean? Malik answered quietly. It means every second matters now. Back at the Whitmore Estate, firefighters reluctantly retreated from the front entrance as burning debris crashed through the ceiling. A deafening roar echoed across the property. The front porch partially collapsed. Parents screamed. Neighbors cried openly. Even seasoned firefighters lowered their heads. Chief Brooks remained standing closest to the entrance despite repeated warnings to move back. His eyes never left the second-floor window. Suddenly, the thermal drone operator shouted, "Chief!" Daniel turned. "What?" "We lost one heat signature." The entire command post froze. Nobody breathed. The monitor now displayed only two faint figures. One adult. One child. Daniel whispered almost inaudibly, "No." He grabbed his radio once more. "Malik." Static. Nothing. His voice broke for the first time that day. "Where are you?" Miles away, standing beside a highway under the afternoon sun, Malik heard only silence from the broken radio lying beneath another vehicle. He couldn't answer. He couldn't move. And somewhere beyond the thick column of smoke rising over Charlotte, the people he had sworn to protect were running out of time. The terrible silence after Chief Brooks' last unanswered radio call lasted only seconds before another voice broke across the emergency channel. "Command, this is Drone 1. "Go ahead," Daniel Brooks answered immediately. "We're losing visibility. Heavy smoke is covering the entire north side." Daniel looked at the live thermal feed. The glowing figures inside the house had become faint, not because the fire was dying, because the smoke had become so dense that even advanced imaging struggled to see through it. Every minute that passed stole another chance. Lisa Hernandez stepped beside him. "We've evacuated every firefighter from the interior." Daniel never looked away from the monitor. "I know." "We can't send another crew." "I know." "If we do, we may lose more people." His voice sounded empty. Around them, nearly every firefighter stood frozen. They were trained to rush toward danger. Standing outside while victims remained trapped was one of the cruelest moments any firefighter could experience. Daniel quietly whispered, "Come on, Malik." Back on the roadside, Officer Jenna Collins had already made another call. "Dispatch, patch me through to fire communications." Within seconds, another dispatcher answered. "This is fire communications. This is Officer Collins. I need immediate verification on Rescue Captain Malik Thompson." "Verified." "Can you repeat that?" "Captain Malik Thompson is assigned to Station 18, Structural Rescue Division. Current emergency deployment authorized directly by Fire Chief Daniel Brooks." Jenna looked at Ethan. Every word landed like a hammer. She continued. "Is Captain Thompson expected at the Whitmore Estate?" The dispatcher answered without hesitation. "Affirmative." "He's considered mission critical." Jenna slowly lowered the radio. Mission critical. There was no stronger language fire communications could have used. She turned toward Ethan. "You stopped the one firefighter they specifically requested." Ethan swallowed. "No. They're mistaken." Before Jenna could answer, another police supervisor's SUV pulled onto the shoulder. Sergeant Robert Hayes climbed out. He immediately noticed the growing crowd, the damaged emergency beacon, Malik standing in handcuffs, and 3 different people recording with their phones. His instincts told him something had gone terribly wrong. "What happened here?" Ethan answered confidently. "I detained a suspect impersonating a firefighter." Robert frowned. "Impersonating?" "Yes, sir." Robert walked toward Malik. Without saying a word, he picked up the department identification Ethan had dropped onto the hood of the patrol car. He studied it carefully. Then he looked at Malik. "You said you're Rescue Captain Thompson." "Yes, Sergeant." Robert examined the embroidered name across Malik's turnout coat. The stitching matched. The rank insignia matched. Everything appeared authentic. He turned toward Ethan. "Did you run his credentials?" "I didn't need to." Robert's eyebrows rose. "You didn't verify?" "I knew he was lying. Knew. I used my judgment." Robert's expression hardened. "Judgment isn't evidence." Before Ethan could defend himself again, one of the teenagers who had been recording stepped forward. "Sir, Robert looked at him. I recorded everything. You did? The teenager nodded. He kept asking the officer to call dispatch. Another witness raised her phone. I recorded part of it too. The construction worker joined in. He never resisted. An elderly woman added quietly. He begged to save people. Robert accepted one of the phones. The video began playing. There was Malik, holding out his department ID, calm, respectful, patient. Then Ethan's voice echoed clearly through the recording. I don't care what that badge says. Another angle showed Ethan throwing the emergency beacon onto the road. Another captured him tossing the radio onto the asphalt. Robert slowly lowered the phone. His face changed completely. Ethan. For the first time, Ethan looked genuinely nervous. I can explain. I'm listening, I thought. You thought I believed. Robert interrupted sharply. You believed enough to ignore every opportunity to verify his identity. No answer. The silence said everything. At that exact moment, another emergency transmission exploded across every police radio. All law enforcement units in the Ashcroft Heights sector. Fire Chief Brooks requests immediate response. Repeat. The rescue captain assigned to the incident has not arrived. Robert's eyes slowly shifted toward Malik, then back to Ethan, then to the shattered emergency beacon. The pieces finally fit together. He unclipped the handcuff key from his belt. Ethan immediately stepped forward. Sergeant, wait. Robert didn't even look at him. You've already waited too long. Just before the key reached the cuffs, Robert's portable radio rang again. This time, the dispatcher's voice sounded even more urgent. Sergeant Hayes, go ahead. You need to get Captain Thompson moving immediately. Robert frowned. What's happened? There was a brief pause. When the dispatcher spoke again, every person standing nearby fell silent. The trapped children. Their Fire Chief Brooks' son and daughter. Even Ethan's breathing stopped. He slowly turned toward the massive column of smoke rising above the distant neighborhood. The realization struck him all at once. The man standing in handcuffs beside him hadn't simply been responding to another routine emergency. He had been racing toward the most important rescue of the entire city. Miles away, Chief Brooks stood beneath the roaring aerial ladders as burning embers drifted through the air like black snow. He stared at the second-floor windows where no movement could be seen anymore. His gloved hands trembled. Lisa Hernandez stepped beside him once more. We've checked every access point. Daniel closed his eyes. Then, almost as if refusing to surrender hope, he whispered one final sentence. So Malik has never failed to answer a call. His eyes opened again. So why isn't he here? Far across the city, Sergeant Robert Hayes finally slid the handcuff key into the lock around Malik Thompson's wrists. The steel mechanism clicked. One cuff sprang open. But everyone standing on that roadside knew the most valuable thing taken from Rescue Captain Malik Thompson wasn't his freedom. It was the nearly 20 precious minutes that no one could ever give back. The second handcuff finally dropped onto the pavement. Malik didn't waste a single second rubbing his bruised wrists. Where are my keys? Sergeant Robert Hayes immediately turned toward Ethan. The truck keys. Ethan instinctively reached into his pocket. His hand froze. Moments earlier, convinced he had arrested a criminal, he had tossed Malik's keys several yards away into the grassy median while searching the pickup. Robert's voice thundered. Where are they? Ethan pointed toward the roadside. I threw them over there. Malik sprinted before anyone else could move. Ignoring the pain in his wrists, he searched desperately through knee-high grass littered with broken branches, soda cans, and roadside debris. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Every second felt like another life slipping away. Finally, sunlight reflected off a metal keyring. Malik snatched it from the grass and ran back toward the truck. Officer Jenna Collins had already opened the driver's door. "The beacon's destroyed," she said. "I know." "The radio." Malik glanced toward the crushed unit lying beneath a parked sedan. "It won't matter." "What are you going to use?" "My memory." He climbed inside. The dashboard where the emergency beacon had once flashed was now nothing more than dangling wires. His direct radio connection to Fire Command was gone. His GPS routing display was dead. Even so, he started the engine. Sergeant Hayes leaned through the open window. "I'll have every intersection cleared." Malik nodded. "Thank you." He looked once at Ethan. There was no hatred in his eyes, only heartbreaking disappointment. "You had 30 different chances to believe the truth." Before Ethan could answer, Malik accelerated back onto the roadway. The pickup disappeared toward the growing pillar of smoke. For several long moments, no one spoke. Then Robert slowly turned toward Ethan. "Give me your badge." Ethan looked stunned. "Sir, your badge. We don't have time for this." Robert stepped closer. "We don't have time because you stole it." Ethan reluctantly unclipped his badge. Robert took it without another word. "And your service weapon, Sergeant, now." The surrounding officers watched in complete silence as Ethan removed his duty weapon and handed it over. No one defended him. No one spoke. Officer Jenna Collins quietly shook her head. "I told you to verify." Ethan lowered his eyes. "I thought I was protecting people," Jenna answered softly. "No. You were protecting your own ego." Those words cut deeper than any disciplinary report ever could. Meanwhile, Malik pushed the truck as fast as safety allowed through Charlotte traffic. Without the emergency beacon, most drivers assumed he was simply another impatient motorist. Cars hesitated. Some refused to move. Every intersection became another obstacle. He repeatedly sounded the horn while waving his turnout helmet through the driver's window. "Please, move, emergency." A delivery driver finally recognized the Charlotte Fire Department emblem painted on the truck door. He immediately blocked 2 lanes, allowing traffic to separate. Other motorists followed. One by one, strangers created a narrow path. It wasn't enough, but it helped. Across the city, Fire Chief Daniel Brooks continued refusing every order to retreat farther from the collapsing structure. Burning embers drifted across his turnout coat. His assistant grabbed his arm. "Chief, you need to move back." Daniel pulled free. "My children are still in there." A thunderous crack echoed overhead. Another massive roof beam collapsed inside the house. The impact shook the ground beneath everyone's feet. Several firefighters instinctively stepped backward. The drone operator looked at his screen. "Chief," Daniel rushed over. "What now?" "The last child." He hesitated. "The thermal image is fading." Daniel stared at the monitor. The smallest glowing figure had barely moved in nearly a minute. His breathing became shallow. Lisa Hernandez quietly placed a hand on his shoulder. "We're not giving up," Daniel whispered. "I'm running out of things to believe." Just then, another fire engine pulled into the command area. The captain climbed down immediately. "Chief!" Daniel turned. "What?" "Police are trying to locate Captain Thompson." "Trying." The word struck him like ice. "Trying." They should have found him 20 minutes ago. He grabbed his portable radio again. "Malik." Nothing. Malik, answer me. Silence. He lowered the microphone. For the first time in decades, Fire Chief Daniel Brooks looked utterly defeated. Not because the fire had beaten him, because time had. Miles away, Malik finally reached the outskirts of Ashcroft Heights. Even before he saw the mansion, he could feel the heat radiating through the windshield. The smoke column towered hundreds of feet into the afternoon sky. Television helicopters circled overhead. Dozens of emergency vehicles crowded every surrounding street. As he turned onto Whitmore Drive, police officers immediately waved him toward the command entrance. Word had already spread. Rescue Captain Thompson had finally arrived. The pickup barely stopped before Malik jumped out. He grabbed a spare helmet and rescue bag from behind the seat. His destroyed radio meant he had no idea what conditions now existed inside. He would have to assess everything on arrival. Before he could take 3 steps, a firefighter came running toward him. Captain, what do we have? The east staircase is gone. I expected that. Front hallway collapsed. Alternative access. We don't have one. Malik looked at the burning mansion. He knew the building better than almost anyone. There was still one possibility. Dangerous, extremely dangerous, but possible. He looked toward the old stone carriage house connected to the estate by an underground maintenance corridor. A passage almost everyone had forgotten, almost everyone, except the man who had mapped it during a training exercise 3 years earlier. Without another word, Malik started running. At that exact moment, Fire Chief Daniel Brooks turned and saw a familiar figure sprinting across the smoke-covered lawn, wearing soot-stained turnout gear. For one brief second, Daniel couldn't believe his own eyes. Then he shouted with every ounce of strength he had left. Malik. Dozens of firefighters turned toward the voice. Hope, which had nearly vanished from the fireground, suddenly returned all at once. Malik. Fire Chief Daniel Brooks' voice thundered across the smoke-covered lawn. Every firefighter turned at once. For several long seconds, no one moved. Then a wave of relief swept through the exhausted crews as Rescue Captain Malik Thompson sprinted toward the command post, his soot-stained turnout coat fluttering behind him. Daniel met him halfway. What happened? Malik was breathing hard. I was stopped by a police officer. He arrested me on the way here. The words hit everyone standing nearby like a blast wave. Several firefighters stared in disbelief. You were arrested, Lisa Hernandez repeated. Malik nodded once. My emergency light was destroyed. My radio was smashed. I lost almost 20 minutes. Daniel's jaw tightened. His face slowly turned from confusion to outrage. Who? Before Malik could answer, Sergeant Robert Hayes hurried across the lawn with Officer Jenna Collins only a few steps behind. Both stopped in front of the fire chief. Robert removed his cap. Chief Brooks. Daniel immediately recognized the expression on the sergeant's face. Something terrible had happened. It was one of ours, Robert admitted quietly. He detained Captain Thompson while he was responding. The surrounding firefighters erupted. What? You're kidding? Who would do that? Robert continued. The officer failed to verify his credentials. Daniel's eyes filled with disbelief. You mean to tell me? He pointed toward Malik. The rescue captain I personally requested. His voice rose. Was standing in handcuffs while my children were trapped inside that house. No one answered, because no answer could make it better. Daniel looked directly at Robert. Where is the officer? He's on his way here. No. Daniel's voice was ice cold. To bring him. Less than 2 minutes later, Another patrol vehicle rolled through the emergency entrance. Officer Ethan Briggs stepped out slowly. His uniform was still spotless. His confidence was gone. As soon as he saw Malik standing beside the fire chief, he realized the nightmare he had created was only beginning. Daniel walked straight toward him. Every firefighter on the scene watched in complete silence. Every police officer lowered their eyes. Daniel stopped only inches away. "Look at me." Ethan slowly raised his head. "Were you the officer who stopped Captain Thompson?" "Yes, Chief." "Were you told he was responding to this fire?" "Aye." "Were you shown his identification?" "Yes." "Were you asked to verify it?" "Yes." And instead, Daniel's voice cracked with barely controlled anger. "You put him in handcuffs." Ethan couldn't speak. Daniel pointed toward the burning mansion. "My son." His finger shifted toward the second-floor windows. "And my daughter," his voice trembled, "are still inside." He stepped even closer. "The man you arrested is the only structural rescue captain in this department who knows the underground maintenance corridor beneath that house." Ethan's eyes widened. He slowly turned toward Malik. "You," Malik answered quietly. "I tried to tell you." Daniel wasn't finished. "I personally selected Captain Thompson because 3 years ago, he mapped that corridor during a historical rescue training exercise. Every firefighter standing nearby nodded. They remembered. Malik had spent weeks studying century-old blueprints that almost everyone else ignored. Most people thought the project had been unnecessary. Today, it was the only remaining chance. Daniel's voice became almost a whisper. "You didn't just delay a firefighter. You delayed my children's last hope." The words shattered what little composure Ethan still had. I'm sorry." Nobody answered. An apology had arrived far too late. Suddenly, Lisa Hernandez shouted from the command monitor. "Chief." Everyone turned. The thermal drone just picked up movement. Daniel rushed over. "What do you have?" Lisa pointed at the screen. "The nanny's heat signature has disappeared." A heavy silence fell. Only 2 faint signatures remained. One child, then another. Both barely moving, Malik studied the live image for only 3 seconds. "They're unconscious." Daniel looked at him. "Can you still reach them?" Malik's eyes shifted toward the old stone carriage house. "If the maintenance tunnel hasn't collapsed." He paused. "I can reach the basement. And after that, I'll have less than 4 minutes before conditions become unsurvivable." Lisa immediately objected. "That's suicide." Malik calmly removed his damaged gloves. "No. It's rescue." Daniel grabbed his shoulder. "I'm ordering you to come back if the structure starts failing." Malik gave a faint smile. "You've given me that order before. And you've actually listened before." Eventually. For the first time since the fire began, a few firefighters managed a brief nervous smile. It disappeared almost immediately. Everyone understood the risk. Malik turned toward the assembled rescue crew. "I need 2 volunteers." Before he could finish the sentence, 6 firefighters stepped forward, then 4 more, then nearly the entire technical rescue team. I said 2. The group remained standing. Nobody moved back. Finally, Malik pointed. "Garcia." A veteran firefighter nodded. "With you." "Ellis." Another firefighter stepped forward. "I'm ready." Malik quickly outlined the plan. "We enter through the carriage house. If the tunnel is intact, we reach the basement. We breach the old service hatch beneath the east hallway. Once we're upstairs, we have one chance. And if the tunnel collapses, Garcia asked. Malik looked toward the roaring flames. Then you two go back. And you? I'm bringing those kids home. Daniel extended his hand. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then the fire chief pulled Malik into a firm embrace. Bring them back. Malik nodded once. I'll do everything I can. Without another word, he adjusted his helmet, checked his air supply, and started running toward the smoke-covered carriage house. Behind him, hundreds of firefighters, police officers, paramedics, and terrified neighbors watched in complete silence. No sirens, no shouting. Only the roar of the fire echoed through the afternoon air, because everyone standing there understood the same terrifying truth. The next few minutes would decide not only whether 2 children survived, but whether Rescue Captain Malik Thompson would ever walk back out of that burning house alive. The heavy steel door to the abandoned carriage house groaned open as Malik Thompson Garcia and Ellis disappeared into the darkness. The roar of the fire faded behind them. Now another sound took its place. The creaking of old beams, the dripping of water, the distant rumble of a building slowly tearing itself apart. Malik switched on his helmet light. The narrow maintenance tunnel stretched ahead, coated in decades of dust and cobwebs. It hasn't been touched in years, Garcia whispered. It doesn't need to be, Malik replied. It only needs to stay standing. The 3 firefighters advanced quickly, crouching beneath low stone arches. Chunks of mortar occasionally dropped from the ceiling. Every vibration reminded them that thousands of pounds of burning timber rested directly overhead. Halfway through the tunnel, Ellis suddenly stopped. Captain! A loud crack echoed through the passage. Dust poured from above. Everyone froze. Another crack. Then silence. Malik looked upward. The support beam above us just shifted. Garcia tightened his grip on the rescue rope. Should we turn back? Malik slowly shook his head. If that beam had failed completely, we'd already be buried. They kept moving. Less than 2 minutes later, the tunnel ended beneath a rusted iron service hatch. Malik wiped away years of dirt until an old brass handle appeared. This is it. Together, the 3 firefighters forced the hatch upward. Fresh smoke immediately rushed downward. The heat was overwhelming. Garcia checked the thermal camera. The hallway above us is fully involved. Malik studied the display. No. He pointed toward a narrow section. The floor joists here are still intact. He climbed through first. The hallway looked almost unrecognizable. Flames rolled across the ceiling. Furniture burned like giant torches. The air itself shimmered from the extreme heat. His radio had been destroyed hours earlier. Hand signals would have to do. He pointed left. The children's bedrooms lay only 30 feet away. It felt like 300. Every few steps, burning debris crashed around them. The old mansion groaned as though alive. Suddenly, Ellis shouted, "Floor!" A section of hardwood collapsed only inches behind Malik. Orange flames exploded through the opening. Their escape route had nearly disappeared. Malik never slowed. We're close. Garcia swung the thermal camera toward the bedroom wall. I've got them. 2 faint heat signatures, both motionless. Malik kicked the bedroom door. Nothing. He hit it again. The swollen frame refused to move. Without hesitation, he grabbed a fire axe. 1 strike. 2. 3. The lock finally shattered. A wall of black smoke burst into the hallway. Inside the room, visibility was almost zero. Malik dropped to his knees. Crawl. The 3 firefighters searched by touch. Then, a tiny hand. Malik immediately pulled an unconscious little girl toward him. She couldn't have been older than 8. Her pulse was weak, but it was there. Garcia found the second child beneath a collapsed bookshelf. The little boy was barely breathing. Ellis carefully lifted the heavy debris. Together they freed him. Garcia looked toward Malik. "We've got them." Malik nodded. "Go." Garcia hesitated. "What about you?" "I'm checking the adjoining room." The nanny, Malik nodded once. 30 seconds. No more. Garcia and Ellis disappeared into the smoke, carrying one child each. Malik forced himself toward the neighboring bedroom. Every breath through his air mask grew hotter. The ceiling above him sagged dangerously. He reached the doorway. There, pinned beneath part of a fallen wardrobe, lay the elderly nanny. She was unconscious, barely alive. Malik shoved against the heavy furniture. It didn't move. He tried again. Nothing. The old hardwood floor beneath his boots suddenly trembled. A deep cracking sound echoed throughout the room. Time had run out. Malik wrapped both arms around the wardrobe. With one desperate effort fueled by pure adrenaline, he lifted just enough to drag the woman free. Then the entire wardrobe crashed sideways. At the exact same instant, the ceiling collapsed behind him. The doorway disappeared beneath burning beams. His only exit was gone. Outside, firefighters watched in horror as flames erupted through the roof directly above the children's bedrooms. Lisa Hernandez stared at the building. No. Daniel Brooks looked toward the carriage house entrance. Garcia and Ellis burst through the smoke, carrying the unconscious children. "We've got them." Paramedics rushed forward. Daniel ran to his son and daughter. Both children still had pulses, weak but alive. Tears filled his eyes. Thank God. Then he looked behind them. Only 2 firefighters had emerged. "Where's Malik?" Neither man answered immediately. Garcia lowered his head. The ceiling came down. Daniel's face drained of color. "What?" He stayed behind to save the nanny. At that exact moment, a deafening explosion echoed inside the mansion. The remaining central roof collapsed. A massive cloud of sparks shot into the afternoon sky. Hundreds of people instinctively stepped backward. Even veteran firefighters stared silently at the inferno. Officer Ethan Briggs watched from behind the police line. His hands trembled uncontrollably. He whispered to himself. He went back. Jenna Collins stood beside him. He went back for someone he didn't even know. Ethan slowly closed his eyes. Only hours earlier, he had mocked the very man now risking his life to save complete strangers. Then through the thick black smoke, someone shouted from the west side of the house. "Movement!" Every head turned. A firefighter pointed toward a shattered basement window near the old foundation. Daniel looked, for one endless second. Nothing. Then a soot-covered hand reached through the smoke. Another followed. And finally, Rescue Captain Malik Thompson crawled out of the collapsing structure, carrying the unconscious elderly nanny across his shoulders as flames erupted behind him. The entire fireground fell silent. Then applause broke out. One firefighter started clapping. Another joined. Within seconds, hundreds of firefighters, police officers, paramedics, and stunned neighbors stood together, applauding the exhausted man who had refused to leave anyone behind. But while the rescue had ended, the truth about what had delayed it was only beginning to spread. The applause continued long after Malik Thompson collapsed onto one knee. Paramedics rushed toward him, while firefighters carefully helped the elderly nanny from his shoulders and placed her onto a stretcher. "She's breathing." One medic looked up. "Both children are breathing too." The words spread across the fireground like a wave. Cheers erupted. Several firefighters hugged one another. Others quietly wiped tears from soot-covered faces. Fire Chief Daniel Brooks stood beside his son and daughter as paramedics loaded them into ambulances. Only after watching the ambulance doors close did he finally allow himself to breathe. Then he turned. His eyes found Malik sitting against the rear bumper of Engine 4, exhausted, his oxygen mask hanging loosely around his neck. Daniel walked toward him without saying a word. Every firefighter nearby instinctively stepped aside. When he reached Malik, the fire chief slowly removed his own helmet. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then, in front of hundreds of firefighters, police officers, reporters, and neighbors, Daniel Brooks stood at attention and delivered a perfect firefighter's salute. The entire fireground fell silent. "Captain Malik Thompson," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Today you saved my son." He paused. "You saved my daughter." Another pause. "You saved Mrs. Evelyn Carter." His voice trembled. "And you reminded every one of us what this badge is supposed to mean." Daniel lowered his salute. Then he did something no one expected. He embraced Malik like family. The firefighters surrounding them erupted into applause once again. Many of them had served with Malik for years. None were surprised by what he had done, only by how much he had been forced to overcome before doing it. A short distance away, Officer Ethan Briggs stood alone. His patrol badge was gone. His duty belt had already been removed. He watched the embrace in complete silence, every image replayed in his mind. Malik calmly offering his identification. Malik asking him to call dispatch. Malik pleading to verify the emergency. Malik warning that people could die. And then, Malik running into a collapsing building to save the very children Ethan had unknowingly kept waiting. Sergeant Robert Hayes approached. "The Internal Affairs Commander is here." Ethan nodded weakly. "I figured. You'll surrender your cruiser?" Another nod. "Your department credentials have been suspended pending investigation." Ethan closed his eyes. "I understand." Robert looked at him for several seconds before speaking again. "You know what the hardest part is." Ethan slowly looked up. "You didn't make one mistake." Robert's voice remained calm. "You ignored every opportunity to correct it." Those words hurt far more than the suspension. Within hours, videos recorded by witnesses flooded social media. Millions watched the footage. They saw Malik respectfully presenting his identification. They saw him asking for dispatch verification. They saw Ethan refuse. They saw the emergency beacon smashed onto the pavement. They saw the radio thrown into the street. And finally, they saw the same firefighter emerge from an inferno carrying a survivor while the crowd applauded. The contrast needed no explanation. The city's mayor called an emergency press conference the following morning. Standing beside Fire Chief Brooks, Police Chief Angela Morris, and members of the Charlotte City Council, she addressed the public. What happened yesterday was more than a communication failure. She looked directly into the cameras. It was a failure to listen before judging. Police Chief Morris stepped forward. Officer Ethan Briggs has been relieved of duty pending the outcome of a criminal and administrative investigation involving obstruction of emergency services, abuse of authority, destruction of public safety equipment, and conduct unbecoming an officer. No questions were taken. The evidence spoke for itself. 1 week later, the city council gathered once again. This time the atmosphere was entirely different. The council chamber overflowed with firefighters, police officers, emergency dispatchers, and ordinary citizens. When Malik entered, everyone stood. The standing ovation lasted nearly 2 full minutes. The mayor smiled warmly. "Captain Thompson." She lifted a polished wooden case. On behalf of the city of Charlotte, we present you with the Medal of Extraordinary Civil Courage. Another wave of applause filled the room. Fire Chief Brooks stepped to the podium. I've spent 29 years leading firefighters. He looked toward Malik. I've never met anyone who better represents courage under pressure. He then turned toward the audience. But this medal isn't only about bravery. It's about character. He paused. Captain Thompson could have spent the rest of his life angry. He had every reason to. Instead, he chose to save lives. Daniel looked back at Malik. That choice says more about the man than any medal ever could. Months later, a new citywide emergency protocol was adopted. Whenever firefighters, paramedics, or other authorized emergency responders were traveling under official emergency authorization, responding officers were required to verify dispatch status before taking enforcement action whenever circumstances safely allowed. The policy became known informally throughout Charlotte as the Thompson Protocol. Malik never asked for his name to be attached to it. He simply returned to Station 18. He cleaned equipment, checked rescue ropes, trained younger firefighters, and answered the next emergency call exactly as he always had. One afternoon, while leaving the station after another long shift, Malik noticed a familiar figure waiting quietly near the entrance. It was Ethan. No uniform, no badge, no patrol car, only an ordinary man carrying a small cardboard box. Inside was the broken emergency beacon Ethan had shattered that afternoon. It had been carefully repaired. "I know this doesn't fix what I did," Ethan said quietly. "It never will." Malik accepted the box. For several moments, he simply looked at the repaired beacon. Then he looked back at Ethan. "The hardest fires to put out," he said softly, "are the ones inside ourselves." Ethan lowered his head. "I'll spend the rest of my life remembering that." Malik offered a small nod, not because everything had been forgiven, but because bitterness would never save another life. Hope might. And that was the lesson he had carried into every fire he had ever faced.
Real courage is revealed when someone chooses compassion over pride, even after being treated unfairly. Never assume you know someone's story based on appearance or first impressions, because one moment of judgment can change countless lives. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more inspiring stories about courage, justice, and the strength of the human spirit.